Thank y'all for staying right here on that with the dial on Amazing 102.5 FM, where we are on the lift. And my special guest is Cassie on today. She's doing something more than promoting like some essence of her business. She's promoting what she really believes in, that you really can create, that you really can have a new you. We happen to be talking about financial literacy, so she'll give us some tips in there specifically as it relates to finances or credit, because we really do believe that you can start again. Cassie, go ahead and help our listening audience as we continue the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So I think the first tip that I would like to give, because a lot of people don't realize, is that there's a difference between a FICO score and a Vantage score.
What you say now? FICO? FICO?
Score.
So when we see FICO, there's a
yes.
difference between that and what?
A Vantage score, VANTAGE.
Okay. Well, what we talking about then? Define
Yes,
both. Let us
yes,
know.
yes.
Thank you for that drop of wisdom.
Yes, and oftentimes people see the Vantage score on Credit Karma.
Oh.
And I get the call all the time. Is this real? Because my score on Credit Karma shows an 800, but when a lender pulls it, it shows a 500. And I may be exaggerating a little bit, but there is a difference between those two. And so 95% of lenders pull FICO scores. So you rarely ever want to look at a Vantage score. And most people do because it's free, which makes sense because most lenders don't use it.
Okay.
So you always want to make sure that you know the version that you're looking at for your credit score.
So let's be clear. Vantage scores are often free.
Correct.
So many of the links and sites that allow us to look at that score is actually giving us a free score, and it's often going to be a better score. It's going to be an elevated score.
Correct.
And I'm processing, but then that makes sense because if you're trying to sell me something, you want me to think
That it's
that I'm
higher.
doing real good in my finances. And what
Absolutely.
you're saying is the FICO or the FICO score is actually the more accurate that
Accurate.
lenders will look at.
Correct. And it's not that the myth is that the Vantage score is not real, and that's not the case. It is a real credit score. It's just not what most lenders pull when they're trying to see if you're trustworthy of credit.
And so I think that's interesting to highlight. So a credit score is supposed to be an indicator. It's supposed to tell the story of how you handle money.
Yes.
Is that the purpose of a credit score?
Can you be trusted with more credit?
Can you be trusted with more credit?
Yes.
And so the higher the number, is good. The lower the number, they're saying your trustworthiness is not so solid,
so
right?
good.
And so what are some of the actual tangible behaviors that we may engage in day to day that's either telling people we're more trustworthy or that we're not?
So the first thing is making sure that you're paying your bills on time, especially if they're being reported to the credit bureaus. There are 3 major credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And anything being reported within the last 24 months is actually being reported a lot heavier than some of the older items. So you always want to make sure that everything's being paid on time. One late payment can drop your credit score 30 to 60 points right off the bat.
Will you say that again and why that's important? Because we may
Yes.
not even know. Okay, so it dropped and what? So you're saying one late payment.
One late payment can drop your credit score 30 to 60 points right off the back. And that number varies, but it can definitely drop. And a lot of times people, because some of the creditors do allow that grace period. So you may think that you have 30 days to pay the bill before the next time they report, that's not always the case. So you always want to make sure, for one, you have the knowledge of when your the creditor actually reports to the credit bureaus. Also, just remember that within that month, for February, we had 29 days. In March, we have 31 days. So that 30-day can vary, and oftentimes we don't pay attention to that.
So that we understand then the impact of that, if one late payment can drop me 30 to 60 points, on the reverse side of it, about how long does it take for me to gain 30 to 60 points in my score?
It can take a while. So that one late payment will last on your credit report. If it's not removed for whatever reason, it can last on the credit report for at least 7 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Like for real. I just was
For real.
nobody. I'm like, hold on.
Yes.
Wait a minute. So then, seriously though, then when you're saying managing and being timely about how you pay and when you pay, realizing that it impacts more than just today, it impacts your tomorrow.
It impacts your tomorrow as well. Another thing I would add to with your credit card utilization, that's another great impact. It weighs about 30 to 35% on the credit report. And so within your credit score, so you just want to make sure that your credit utilization is kept at least 25%. Some say 30%. I like to say 25% or less so that you have that wiggle room if it does go up to that 30%. But the higher your credit card utilization, the lower your credit score.
So let's break that down for our listening audience, because they may be saying, well, 25% of what? Or 30% of what? What do you actually mean when you say only use your credit card 25%? What does that mean?
25% of whatever your credit limit is. So let's just say that you have a credit card that's a $300 limit. 25% of that is $75. So at any given moment, your credit card balance should not be exceeding more than $75.
Wow. So you mean when we be proud that we done maxed the card out, we're really, even if we're paying it on time, the whole maxing out a card is not a good thing. Maxing out your credit is not a good thing.
No. And I know that, especially now since credit is power, where you want to use your credit more than your cash. Another important thing that you need to know is that the credit reporting, when they report to the credit bureaus.
Okay.
And I can dive into that and, a little bit more, but that's a very important factor to know.
Okay. So what we'll do, Cassie, so we don't run too far off from our listening audience, when we circle back, I want us to kind of level set again for somebody who perhaps is listening and they really want to process just how to use credit in a good way versus credit as a rescue way, which is normally why it's not at only a 25%, because we're using it to rescue our lives, right?
Absolutely.
How to really begin to reverse that and use credit in a good way. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Y'all keep the dials right here on Amazing 102.5 FM.